that was one of the experiences that have really stuck with me among many that have really reminded me why I podcast. Because when we sit down with people, we're all unique. We all come from unique backgrounds, unique struggles, unique successes. But when we sit down and we connect on a deeper level, we realize that while we're all so very unique, we're also very similar as well. Hello and welcome back to the Wellness Dojo podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Craik, and welcome to episode 100. Now, this is a different episode than what we've done recently. It's just me here. And to be honest with you, I was hesitant to do this episode because I've become so familiar with having conversations with guests. It's been a long time since I've done just a solo episode. And it's funny because it brings me back to the early days of podcasting. But before I get into that, I want to share a quote. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, the reason why I gave that quote, the reason why I love that quote so much is because it reminds me of podcasting that, whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. And that's why I share these podcast episodes, because I think we all have a story. We all have experiences that are valuable to hear. We all have wounds, and sometimes one person, their words are in the exact shape of a wound that you have. And I just think that that's such a powerful thing for us to be able to share experiences and stories and to be able to have that kind of impact on one another. And so with that being said, this episode 100, I wanted to celebrate a little bit and almost selfishly a little bit by talking about the journey from episode 1 to episode 100, what it's meant to me, what it's been for me, and to offer an opportunity to express my gratitude as well. So how did it all start? Well, I knew that I had things to say. I knew that I had knowledge, that I had passions with fitness, nutrition, massage therapy, and wellness, and with martial arts. I knew I had something and that I wanted to do more to help more people with the knowledge and experiences that I did have. And I also wanted to create long-form content that could be easily chopped up, even from a business standpoint, into smaller form content. But what I didn't believe at that time was that I was really interesting enough, or that I was capable of just sitting and doing episode after episode by myself. And so an opportunity came. An old friend of mine from martial arts, Riley Anderson, who was a doctor of naturopathic medicine. We got talking. He was moving back to Calgary during the pandemic, and we were talking about collaborating with my business, where he could do some naturopathic medicine for my wellness company. And as the ball started moving with that, I had brought up this idea to him that I've always wanted to create a podcast. And I didn't think I was interesting enough to do it myself. And I asked him if he would be interested in maybe coming on as a co-host. Long story short, he was interested. We did the research, we got the equipment, we set things up, and we got things rolling. And Dr. Riley brought, in my eyes, a lot of credibility, knowledge, experience, and also just a calm and unique poise to the show. And reflecting back on some of those earlier episodes, we had so much fun together. It was such a joy to record those episodes with him in those early days. The days where it was just him and I talking, to when we started to bring on guests and interview guests as well. We just had so much fun, so many laughs, so much stuff learned, and just growing together as a team in that way is something I'll forever be grateful for. So Dr. Riley, if you're out there listening, I thank you so much for that time and that experience. was so valuable to me. And, my personal life has gone through peaks and valleys like everybody else who's listening to this has experienced as well. And Dr. Riley was a huge asset for me through some of those things, like injuries that I had. I suffered the worst concussion I've ever suffered before, just months into podcasting. And even looking back at some of those episodes, when I watched them, I kind of cringe a little bit because I can see that my brain was fuzzy. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was struggling to articulate things. And I can see it in myself that I was not my best. But it was such an asset to have Dr. Riley there as a friend and also as a team member, because not only did he help me stay positive and help me with my mental state through that concussion, but he was also able to help me with his naturopathic medicine to heal the concussion faster, to manage that, the side effects and help me treat it in an effective and safe way. So I'm super grateful for that. Other injuries that I've experienced through that time as a competitive martial artist, I suffered nerve damage in my neck from jiu-jitsu, and I think also partly from the concussion as well. And that's something that even as I sit here recording today, I can feel it. It's something that I've never fully healed from, but the team that I had, Dr. Riley and the massage therapists and acupuncturists that were on my team at that time, really helped me through that and really started to reinforce this idea that, we're not alone here, and this is a collective effort, which is something that's super, super cool. A few months into recording the podcast episodes, Dr. Riley made the decision that he needed to step away from the show. He had some other exciting opportunities coming up in his life, and it just wasn't where he was able to spend his energy anymore. So we had a great conversation about that, and I decided that I would keep the show going. I was enjoying it. I really liked talking with the guests and wanted to continue to put out the content for the audience. So I took it and I ran with it. But during that time, my life really started to shift, and my marriage was struggling. It was falling apart, and I ended up going through a divorce. The house that we were living in, that we built our lives, that I built my business, and that I built the podcast studio in, we had to leave. And in doing that, I ended up through that time having to move back in with my parents for a little while. And as a man in his 30s with children, it was not an easy thing to do. And I struggled to put out episodes, to want to podcast during that time as my mental health was suffering. I fell into the deepest depression that I've ever been in. And I struggled to see how I could inspire other people, how I could put anything out, because I just felt sad. I felt worthless. I didn't know who I was. And it was a really challenging time to get through. And as I got through that side of it, I still felt resistant to record episodes. And honestly, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I didn't want to talk about my divorce. I didn't want it to end up coming up in episodes. But also, I didn't want to bring guests to a house that wasn't mine. My ego was hurting. And eventually, I talked myself into it. I strummed up the courage to record another episode, to bring a guest. And in those early days recording out of my parents' house, I had a guest come on who's now a good friend of mine, and we had a really great conversation while recording. But when the cameras turned off, we continued to talk. We were vulnerable with each other. We talked about our life experiences, and I shared about my divorce and how I felt about it. And I shared that this was not my home, that I was recording in my parents' home. And this guest made me feel seen. They made me feel heard. They made me feel valuable, and they made me feel human. They shared that they had a similar experience going through divorce, and that they also had to move in with their parents for a little while to get things back on their feet, to get things rolling again. And that was one of the experiences that have really stuck with me among many, that have really reminded me why I podcast. Because when we sit down with people, we're all unique. We all come from unique backgrounds, unique struggles, unique successes. But when we sit down and we connect on a deeper level, we realize that while we're all so very unique, we're also very similar as well. And really, at that time in my life, it was really valuable for me to understand that I wasn't alone. I knew intellectually that it wasn't just me, that many people go through this, sadly, that many people go through depression and divorce and anxieties and embarrassments and all those types of things. But to hear it, to sit down with another person who shared their experience as well, there's something about that when you connect in that way that makes you feel not alone, not just to know it. And so that was super valuable for me. Another quote: difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. Every struggle that I've been through in my life, whether it's the injuries, the divorce, the depression, the failures, the losses, all of it, they've all taught me more about myself. They've all given me the opportunity to prove to myself that I can get up, that I can keep going, that I can hit record again, that I can get back into competition with martial arts, that I can do the work and get myself there, and that I'll be better for it because I took the opportunity to strengthen from the resistance. You know, podcasting has been something that has really lightened up my world. Anytime I record with a guest, I walk away feeling energized. I walk away feeling brighter and lighter. And it's something that I've really, really come to love as a passion, as a hobby. And it's also ignited other passions in my world. You know, I've accomplished so many things since day one of podcasting almost 4 years ago. And things that I really don't talk about that much. For example, a dream of mine is to write a book, to write my own book and to become a published author. And through this time and through realizing with conversations like with that guest that I just alluded to, going through those conversations, finding those connections, realizing that we're not all as different as we think that we are, it reminds me that I can put myself out there, that I can do things, that I can try, and that it's not so scary. And one of those things was becoming a published author for the first time. I contributed in a collective book called Good Grief, and I shared my story. I got vulnerable. I shared the story of how I lost myself, how a part of me died and that I had to grieve that part of me, and how I got through that coming out on the other side. And that's something that's so special to me, but I rarely talk about it. Again, my ego kind of gets in the way because I want to write my own book one day. And I feel like it wasn't my thing, but it's still my accomplishment. It's still something that I did, that I put myself out there to do, to be vulnerable with. And how cool is that? Another quote from Ryan Holiday: the obstacle in the path becomes the path. Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. So like I mentioned, I've faced lots of obstacles through this time. And the podcast, I've had peaks and valleys, and you'll see the podcast has had peaks and valleys. I've had weeks and months where I put out episodes every single week, and I've had months and months in between episodes at times, because that's how life goes sometimes. Sometimes priorities shift. Sometimes you can't do it. And it's hard at times, but we keep going. And I'm still here today, episode 100. How exciting is that? You know, thinking about all these episodes and all the different guests I've had dream guests on the show, guests that I never imagined would have said yes to coming on this little podcast that I'm running. And it's really taught me that it never hurts to ask. Put yourself out there, because nobody's going to say yes if you don't ask. And if they say no, then that's okay. You keep moving on. But it's really given me the confidence to take chances in life that, even if you don't think it's possible, it doesn't hurt to try. Put yourself out there. You can't make it possible by not trying. You can only make it possible by trying. And so, yeah, I've been really blessed to have some really powerful guests on the show, some with big audiences, some with small audiences. And really, it hasn't mattered to me that much because, like I said, everybody has a story. Everybody has value to give. And I've really learned in the collective of what that means, right? We've had guests about all things wellness, and I've really tried to encompass what wellness is to me through this podcast. That, wellness is life. It's not just fitness. It's not just nutrition. Wellness is everything. And we've had guests that come on that highlight that. We've had guests psychologists talking about trauma and suicide, people sharing stories of suicidal attempts. We've had conversations about relationships and how to be a better parent. We've had conversations with artists about creativity and how that impacts you, and authenticity and how that drives you in life and how that aligns you in life. We've had coaches, we've had martial artists, I've had friends on the show. Everybody has brought value to the show because everybody has a story to tell. And we all find a way to connect to those stories. And every single guest that I've sat down with, I've found a way to relate to those guests. And that's the thing that's been so profound for me in my journey of podcasting, is that we're all connected so deeply. And it's easy to look at the world and to think that we're so separate, that we're so uniquely different. But the truth is, we're so uniquely similar. We're so very similar in so many different ways. And that's been highlighted through every conversation I've ever had, where every guest I've sat with from every different background, I've found a way that we relate in life, that we can resonate with each other, and that we can learn from each other and grow from each other. I'm so privileged to have had the opportunity to sit down with all of these guests, because it makes me a better person. I learn from them. I see them. I recognize them. I relate to them. And all of those things make both of us better. It makes all of us better, even if you're just listening on the other side of the camera. And I think that's something that's just so cool to see. Another quote here: knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. If you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. The amount of times that I've learned more about myself through other people ceases to amaze me. And that last line in that quote, if you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. Through all the times in my life that I've thought that I'm behind, that even the podcast isn't growing fast enough, or I'm just living in my parents' place during that period of time and worrying that other people are going to judge me or think less of me. It truly makes you feel rich when you realize that you don't need to be where everybody else is. You don't need to have everybody else's story, because your story is so truly authentic and yours, and that there's value in that story for other people. That's when you know you're rich. I mentioned when I started the podcast, I just wanted to put out stuff that I knew, and I never dreamed that I'd be sitting here today, episode 100. That's actually not true. I always knew that I was going to push this podcast as far as I could go, that I would get to episode 100 and beyond. I just didn't know how that journey was going to look and how long it was going to take me to get there. I did not think it was going to take 4 years or more to get there, but I wanted to put my knowledge out there. And what I didn't expect was how connected I would feel, that I would learn so much about how wanting to put it out there myself, wanting to build it, wanting to create it, my ego wanting me to grow it. I didn't realize how powerful the collective aspect of it was going to be. I didn't realize the shift that I was going to learn, that we're all so much stronger together. I mentioned not being comfortable, not feeling like this episode would be as valuable. So I was hesitant because it's just me talking. And I think that comes from a place of understanding how powerful that collective effort is. Having conversations together, sharing experiences together, coming together to grow community is something that is so invaluable in this world, and has been for me through my struggles in life, the martial arts community, the podcast community of the guests that I've brought on, and the friendships that I've developed through having guests on this show, the friends that I have in my life, the family members, the people who support you in your life. That collective is so important. And it's so important that we stay together, that we stay connected, that we continue to try to understand each other and build each other up. Share those stories. Share your experiences with the people around you, and listen to other people's and take them in, and get curious and really try to understand the people around you, the people in your life, and the people that are far away from you as well. I think we only grow from that. And it's something that I've just been, said it a few times, but I've just been so blessed in my life through this journey of podcasting, from episode 1 to episode 100, and now episodes coming beyond. We've got some really great episodes coming up, and I'm just so fortunate. I'm so grateful for every guest that's come on. One thing that I really want to say here is, with sharing those stories, there's a lot of vulnerability that comes along with that. And vulnerability really is a gift when you give it. And the guests who have come on this show have given me that gift, and they've given the audience that gift of that vulnerability, of sharing their stories so that we can relate, so that we can feel that sense of, I'm not alone in this journey. I've experienced similar things. I've felt similar things. That vulnerability is such a powerful gift that we give to people. And so I'm so grateful for all the guests who have come on to share their knowledge, their experiences, and their stories with me and with my audience. And I'm so grateful for you listening, watching, following along. You help me stay inspired to continue to share. And I want to continue to grow this. So please continue to have conversations around it. Please continue to like, share, comment, subscribe. Help me grow this channel. Help me grow this podcast, because I really do believe that the content, the stories and experiences that we're sharing through this channel is something that can be so valuable to so many people. But like I said, I can't do it alone. It is a collective effort, and I do need your help to spread the word. And I appreciate it so very much. And with that being said, I'm going to end with one more quote. What lies behind us and what lies before us are the tiny matters compared to what lies within us. And when we bring what is within us out into the world, miracles happen. It's from Henry David Thoreau. I want to thank you so much for being here on this episode. I encourage you to go check out some of the past episodes. There's a lot of fun ones, some incredible guests. And like I said, we've got some really great episodes coming up as well. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening and watching. I look forward to seeing you in future episodes.